But then when the Lord really got a hold of my heart, I remember making a promise to him. I'm just like, God, I will never let people be the reason why I step away from your presence. If my faith in God is cemented on how they're acting, I will never experience the goodness of God.
Like you said, false narratives you've had because of the experiences we've had at the hands of people. And then we tie our very real experiences, but we equate it to that of the Lord. And so...
And I've had to be very careful in doing that too, because we live in a fallen world.
Right.
And we're going to come across people who are just like, hey, I thought this was supposed to be a representation of what the church would be like, or what Christ is like, and if this is the Christ, then I don't want it, right? And I've had to be like, okay, not everything is a representation. And sometimes you just, I feel like I've gotten a lot of words, you know. The other word, like, I feel like the Lord has really kept bringing up is the word grace, you know. So even for moments of fallenness, let there be grace. And realize maybe they are doing the best they can, you know? And a person should never dictate how you worship God. Right?
Meaning?
So when I was a teenager, I kind of fell away from the faith. I grew up in a Christian household, and I fell away from the faith, and I actually, at a point in my life, was looking at converting to the Islam faith. And I was seriously talking to a friend of mine about it, you know, because like I hung out with a group of people and they were all Muslim. And I was like, hey, you know what? Like on the outside, it just looked great to me, you know. And but part of the reason I walked away from the Christian faith, or considered even like converting to Islam, is because of the people, right? I was just like, man, if this is what God's people are like, then I don't want nothing to do with it. Never did I say if this is what God is like, right? I was like, if this is what God's people are like, and if this is the church, then I want nothing to do with it. I would rather have something that looks good on the outside. But then when the Lord really got a hold of my heart, I remember making a promise to him. I'm just like, God, I will never let people be the reason why I step away from your presence. So people are going to people. At the end of the day, people will always people. And if my faith in God is cemented on how they're acting, I will never experience the goodness of God. I will never, ever experience the goodness of God if how they act is predicated on how I follow Christ.
Yeah.
So I made a decision a long time ago. I'm like, people are not going to be the reason why I step away, you know. And there's been challenges that have come, and and I'm very thankful, because like I feel like as challenges has arisen, we've loved the local church even more. You know, we've loved God even more, and not to like toot my own horn. It's like, oh, I love God, you know.
Yeah.
But like, never let someone, a human being who is flawed and who is like you, because you're flawed too. You make mistakes. You slip and fall all the time. I do too. I'm not just saying you, but me too, you know. But I don't ever want my relationship with Christ to be predicated off of the action of someone else. But now if I see something good, I'm just like, man, that is such a Christ-like thing, you know. It's like, let it add to what I already know Christ to be, instead of take away. You know, so
we've experienced a few changes just within our campus and our church, and a statement, and challenges too. A statement I've been using quite a bit with our team, and I can't take credit for this. I'm not the smart to think of a statement like that. But Pastor Joel Brooks said that as pastors, you have the responsibility to right size a problem. Essentially, what he's saying is, when something first takes place, it might feel like this. It's this big. But once you take a step back and go, okay, I know this is what it feels like. When you start getting objective about it, maybe this is what actually took place. So it doesn't mean that you don't feel the weight of a hardship or a trial or something challenging that's in front of you. But when you really start going like, okay, I know it feels like this, but this is actually what happened. It starts kind of condensing. And because you're able to right size it, it now feels manageable. And because it feels manageable, you now can approach it with a little more confidence and also a little more grace.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, babe, as you're sharing your story, that's pretty much what you've done. And I went back as early as, 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You took a step back to go, this individual, this person hurt me, but it doesn't mean that the Lord has.
Right.
You did not hold God accountable for the mishaps of his people because you took ownership with your own perspective to right size the problem. It did not mean that you weren't any less hurt.
Right.
But it did help you to manage the spiritual, mental, emotional wounds that came with it.
Yeah.
And so I just want to encourage people where you too may have been hurt. I just want to challenge the term church hurt.
Yeah.
I understand what that means. I know exactly what it means when people say that. Usually when people say church hurt, it's typically in every story, I can honestly say this, in every story when I get people's stories about how they have been wounded, usually it's not the entire church. It's usually one to a handful of individuals that has hurt them, and it's been in key leadership positions. Whether it's the pastor, whether it's someone who was over a small group, an elder, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. It does not minimize or take away the pain or the wounds that you have gone through. This could be in a family, it doesn't have to be in church too. Mm-hmm. This can be in the workplace. It doesn't take away from those wounds. But do we take a step back and instead of saying, I have church hurt, it's I have hurt that happened to be conducted from the church.
Or is it from individual?
Correct.
Or do you say, I have individual hurt?
Well, you can say, I've been hurt by people from the church.
Yeah, people.
Correct.
But I've also been hurt by people from Walmart. So do I have Walmart hurt? Right.
Or I've been hurt by people from families.
Yeah.
From a family, how it is we want to say it. It's not excusing by any, it's definitely not excusing or okaying whatever that person did towards you. Let me be very clear. It's not saying that. It's just saying, do we take a step back to go, I mean, you've heard me share this story multiple times, and I'll use it for another time, but my first 2 years in the Army was not kind to me. Mm-hmm. And I really struggled with anybody pretty much who outranked me. Mm-hmm. Because up until that point, I was hurt and burned by people who outranked me from captain above. And so I just thought the worst of everybody, which me, I don't think like that.
No.
I'm very optimistic. I'm very innocent till guilty, even if I've heard horror stories. Everyone gets a clean slate. Yeah. But when it came to that, if you were a captain above, I was a second lieutenant at the time, the lowest ranking officer as a commissioned officer. And so if you were a captain above, I just didn't trust you. I thought the worst of you. I thought you were a total D-bag, honestly, until you can prove to me elsewise. Yeah. And the Lord really had to show me 3 years being removed from it, by the way, to literally go, Mark, you has officially spent more time in the Army than not to recognize that there are captains, majors, and lieutenant colonels who don't treat you the way the first two people did. Mm-hmm. And essentially, I had a classism issue. Mm-hmm. No other area in my life did I ever struggle with that. I've never had a racial issue. I've never had a gender issue. But I had a classism issue. If you outranked me, I thought you were a total jerk. You had to prove your worthiness,
your
basically.
captainness.
Yeah, truly. Yeah. You got to give me a reason as to why I can trust you. Yeah. Never in any other area of my life did I ever operate like that. And at that point, I had quantifiable data to back that up too. Yeah. Because my first 2 years, I was wounded at the hands of people of a certain rank. I carried that for so many years. And the Holy Spirit really convicted me of that. Point is, it didn't take away the pain, but it did help me to manage it because I had not right-sized it. Yeah. And so I just want to kind of help people, I guess, address that is you have to acknowledge the pain and the wounds that you have. But part of acknowledging it too is also accurately assessing it.
Correct.
Let's right-size it. You know, I told you a couple weeks ago, because, you know, I'm over 4 services. Some things didn't go right. And granted, it was a big issue, but I recognize it only happened in 1 service. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when I said that, I'm like, 1 out of 4 is actually pretty good.
Yeah. What, the 52?
Correct.
Weeks?
And that's it, right. That's even the bigger picture. It's so, that's all I have to say. When you shared that, thank you. Because it's a reminder of part of how we find healing and surrender to the Lord is that we have the responsibility to right size whatever hardship, challenge, wounds, spiritual, mental, emotional injuries we have. Mm-hmm. We have the challenge to right size it so that we can bring it to the Lord. And as you are struggling, not if, when you do struggle, be okay with acknowledging that. It's that prayer that father said when he went to Jesus and he's asking Jesus to heal his daughter. And Jesus' first question is, do you believe? And he says, I want to believe, Lord. Help me with my unbelief.
The amount of times I've said that.
But what a beautiful, honest prayer.
Yeah.
That's my point. Like, if you're struggling to bring that to the Lord, you can say that.
Yeah.
Like, your Heavenly Father is not fragile or petty going, I don't know what to do with your unbelief. I don't know what to do with your lack of faith in this moment. He's not.
Yeah.
If anything, he welcomes it. And so I just want to commend you and thank you, not just for giving us the gift of your vulnerability and sharing that story, but it's a reminder that essentially what you're saying is part of complete abandonment and surrender is to also take on some form of responsibility of saying, I have to right size the pain of what I'm feeling. Because when you right size it, it's manageable now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say something. I think sometimes we don't want to do it because we feel like the pain is owed to us. Like the pain is comfortable because it gives us a reason.
It's a security blanket.
Correct.
Yeah.
It gives us a reason to opt out. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this, be sure to check out some of our other stuff on this page or check out our podcast on Apple and Spotify. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. See you there.